Well, some of the top achievers in the class of 2024 matriculants are learners from special needs schools and those who are differently abled. The Director for Inclusive Education at the Department of Basic Education, Jabulani Ngcobo, joins us now to tell us more about the overall performance of some of these schools. He joins us in studio. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. Congratulations once again to the class of 2024. We keep on speaking about how they were able to break records, you know,
yes.
in terms of the achievements. But there's also another layered story to this, and that is the inclusive nature of what the South African Schools Act requires of the state to do.
Okay. Good morning, Aldrin, and the viewers and your listeners. Thank you very much for allowing us an opportunity to share with the public what's happening. I think the question that you are asking is very important. It's a question that I think I was thinking about when I came here. I think there is a misconception that learners with impairment, the learners that you call learners with disabilities or differently abled, are only in special schools, what you're calling Aldrin schools. But we already have over 67,000 of learners with impairments in public ordinary schools, that's your public mainstream schools, which shows that that's a positive achievement for the country. And it's a story that I think we need to tell more, because it means that schools and provinces are already moving towards meeting our international obligations, but also regional and domestic obligations. Because what you're pointing out in terms of inclusion is exactly that. But what we need to do, given our history, is to move carefully and to make sure that these learners are not disadvantaged. But the good thing is that we don't really have to go out and learn from other countries. We already have a good story in our own country. Schools are doing it and provinces are doing this. So, but I think in terms of what I've been asked to speak to today is about the learners in special schools. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'll do that. Yep. But also we are setting up to be able to report to the public also in terms of the performance of those learners with impairments who are in public mainstreams.
Yeah. So tell us the distinction between the two. So in some schools you would have children who live with a disability.
Yes.
And then in some cases you'd have special needs schools that's specifically for children with disability. Some people have argued, including activists in this particular sector, is that while we are saying that we're encouraging children to go to school, there is the nature of discrimination that actually takes place that says that because of the special needs that this person has, unfortunately this person cannot come to a school. But then when we fast forward it to the workplace, what are we saying about the workplace? Are we saying that there's a workplace where you can only have people who are able-bodied and people who live with a disability cannot be part of that school? Part of that business or a company.
I think what we need to do is because that's a matter that comes from our history of discrimination, and I think it's an issue that we need to deal with. In other words, the issue here is not whether learners must be or they have a right to be in those schools. Those learners have a right to inclusive education. But what we need to deal with are those attitudes that are making people to think that those learners must have separate schools. But I think it is important to indicate that historically we've had a dual track system, if you like, where you have learners with disabilities attending particular schools, special schools, Aldrin schools, and where you have learners who are not regarded as having disabilities or impairments attending those schools. But it has not always been as clean as that. There has always been learners with disabilities, with impairments in mainstream schools. So, but what I'm saying is that the fact that we already have over 67,000 of learners with impairments through disabilities in public mainstream schools, it shows that we are slowly moving towards the direction that we should be taking as a country.
Okay, then quickly speak to us about the special needs schools and how they performed in matric for the class of 2024?
We have in the country 445 of them, and 78 of them offered the National Senior Certificate. And you will see that there's been a very good improvement in terms of, for instance, for last year we were sitting at 86.6% for learners in special schools. This year we're sitting at 89.1%. But I think it's important also to indicate that the quality of the results have been becoming better. Last year we had 47.1 bachelors, and this year we have 51.3% bachelors. You will also,
so that's even higher than the national average.
It's even higher than the national average. So there's good work happening there. But I think also, as I indicated, if we also looked at the performance of learners with impairment in public ordinary school, this could be higher. And I think that's the direction that we need to take. But I think also what is important is that the learners with impairments, learners in special schools with disabilities, were previously taking what is called an endorsed matric. An endorsed NSC consists 5 subjects, and you don't need 5 subjects to get into university. You need 6. But what we have seen from 2 years back is that the number of learners who are taking an endorsed matric has been decreasing. For instance, for last year we had learners. We had 139 learners who took the endorsed matric. In other words, the endorsed matric is your opposite of the NSC that we have. So in other words, that number decreased. And when that number decreased, people were shocked. They thought that it means that the learners with disabilities were not reaching grade 12. But if you look at it this year, that was about 2.6%. If you look at it this year, the number of learners who took the endorsed NSC is sitting at 2.3%. It's 139. That tells you that we are making progress in terms of that. And where I'm sitting, in terms of the endorsed matric, I think we should be aiming for 0 learners taking the endorsed matric and learners taking the NSC that's taken by all the other learners.
Just quickly, as we conclude the conversation, your message to parents who have children who live with a disability, who sometimes decide to keep the child at home instead of taking the child to school. What do you say to them? And also, what does legislation say about that?
In this country, we have compulsory basic education up to grade 9. So in other words, it is compulsory for all the learners of school-going age up to the age of 15 to be in schools. It doesn't matter whether they have a disability or not. And in terms of our constitution, everyone has a right to basic education. Everyone means including learners with impairments. So in other words, no learner, whatever impairment, whatever reason is there, may not attend school. So they all have a right to basic education. So what they need to do is not to keep them at home, but if there are challenges, then to work with the officials, provincial officials, district officials, to deal with those matters. We deal with a whole range of issues to ensure access every year in terms of making sure that these learners have access to basic education like everyone. But I want to underline the fact that everyone has a right to a basic education. Therefore, all the learners, whatever their disability, I must indicate that we have been, I think in the country, we've developed a learning program for the most marginalized learners. I think we're the first in Africa for learners with profound intellectual disability. We already have a learning program for them.
So for children with autism and so forth, would they fall part of that?
Yes, they would fall part of that depending on their severity.
Okay.
But this is the profound, the most challenging to teach. Those that require assistance, those that may not even know where they are, we've got a learning program for them as a country. So that tells you that as a country, actually no learner must be out there in the dark rooms when they're supposed to be in school.
Where there is these initiatives that are being there as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Jabulani Ngcobo is the
Yes.
Director for Inclusive Education at the Department of Basic Education. Thank you so much for making time for us. As you just heard, this is now looking at the schools for children with special needs. Their pass mark for the 2024 academic year is 89.1%. And with a bachelor pass at 51.3%. And as I've indicated, it is actually above the national average. So congratulations to them as well. And thank you so much for making time for us.